Everybody, what's going on? This is Daryl Bennett, Comeback Swinging. Bear with us. We're trying out some new technologies. It's 2021. We've got to level up. I want to first say it is a great day for America. It is a great day for the world. It's a great day to be alive. It's a great day for humanity. It is a great day for people who believe in second chances, redemption, resilience, all that great stuff. I wanted to get on here today so I can share with you some of the work that my office is doing and how you can get involved. People have reached out to me and said, how can we get involved with the work that you're doing? Let me first start by quoting one of the folks that I admire. And I don't think this quote, it gets quoted enough, even though it is overquoted, forget the paradox. Ask not what your country can do for you. This is what we were told. Ask what you could do for your country. Now, short backstory. Most people will tell you that that was John Kennedy who coined that phrase. And it is true in 1961 when he was inaugurated as the youngest elected president. He did speak those words, but he was not the first. Warren Harding, who was president some 40 years before him during the Roaring '20s, actually spoke the same words. They just didn't have the same effect. Why am I starting with that? People often talk about the problems that are going on around them in their community, in their city, in their country. Unless you've been under a rock, every time you turn on the news, there's somebody saying what's wrong with the country, what's wrong with Congress, what's wrong with just everything. But the question isn't so much what's wrong, right? It's what are you going to do about what's wrong? And so I thought about the words of Kennedy and Harding and so many before them that said, don't ask what your country is going to do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. And so part of what I released earlier this week in my office is, and though you just see me today, I'm going to begin to use this platform to share with you the number of other people and organizations that have been working with us and we're announcing some powerful steps that we're taking. If you did not see the press release that my office announced Tuesday, January the 26th, I would strongly encourage that you see it. I'm not going to read it on here because I think, you should read it for yourself. But in that press release, and it was very clear timing why I did released it when I did. For those of you that are familiar with my story, you know that January is a very powerful month for me. You know that the date, January the 23rd, is an extremely powerful date. And even though I did not release the press release on the 23rd, because I was advised it was a Saturday, people probably wouldn't see it, even though that is a powerful date, we decided to release it 3 days after the 23rd, because, it's always power in the third day. It ain't about the first or the second day, it's that third day. And so we released in January the 26th, a series of steps that we're about to take, that our office is going to take, as we help the American government live up to its promise. We help America live up to its promise. We help America be what America can be, the more perfect union that we are aspiring to be. So let me talk practicality and not in broad swaths and statements. What are we doing? Well, and how can you help? We are launching a Jobs and Justice Initiative. I want somebody to write this. I know I'm on a platform that's simulcasting, so I can't necessarily see all of your comments. But if somebody can write, whichever platform you're on, just write Jobs and Justice. Jobs and Justice. You cannot talk about one without talking about the other. It is impossible to talk about true equity in America without talking about the economic constraints that have kept the status quo as it is. You cannot talk about fairness without speaking very clearly about the economic disparities in this land. And I'm going to play some clips for you. Not today, we don't have the time, but I'm going to play some clips from you from some powerful leaders in the past that were awakening us to understand that the cause of justice is not just about the things we typically associate with justice, which is law and the penal system and jails or incarceration or correction. That's part of it. But justice involves fairness. It involves equity. And so we have to speak to the economic systems that have underpinned the United States of America. We have to speak about the transnational and global systems that are keeping things in place. That has to be talked about. So how are we moving the needle? Well, we're moving the needle by working with companies to help them hire people more effectively, more efficiently. When you change hiring for companies, it changes the way that the world works. I've seen it in my own personal life. When people are deployed, not just employed, I'm going to speak about that later, not just employed, but when people are deployed, it changes their self-esteem. It changes their sense of self-worth. It changes how they see themselves. And when you give viable, sustainable, comprehensive, lasting employment and deployment to an individual, it's not just that person's life that you're changing. You are shifting and changing the narrative of countries, of communities, of neighborhoods. It really is that serious. For those of you that's followed my work in social justice, for those of you that's seen the programs that I've run for folks who were recently released from prison, and some of the work that I did as an attorney, and some of the work that I did as a legal advocate for people, you know that I am strongly invested in social change that is real and progressive. For those of you that know my personal story, my lived experience, you know that I am far more connected to this than some tangential theoretical argument that I read in a book. It is not just my education at Harvard that informs my very real sense of justice, but it is also my education in some of the darkest places in America. It is also some of my life experience in those places. So what are we doing? I personally, for those of you that I know, some of you ask, Daryl, how do you make, what do you do? What do you do for a living? Well, I do a lot of things because I want you to know something. You folks talk about jobs. I believe in work. See, your job is the 9 to 5. Your job is what somebody somewhere somehow pays you to do, but your work is what you were put on earth to do. And so I've always confined my life about my work and not my job, because if I'm focused on my work, then the jobs will come. But one of the things that I do as work, because remember, we're talking about jobs and justice. I've always been involved with talking about not just educating people and inspiring people and motivating them, but actually connecting them with the resources. It would bother me to go into communities and tell them they could be great, but know in the back of my mind, there were underpinning, systems and structures that kept them from going to the same schools and kept them from getting similar employment. I think we have to address those things. And so finally, I feel like I'm having a full circle moment because I am finally in a place where I can not just inspire people. That's great. But we can move to empowerment, because I had a pastor that once told me this. He said, Daryl, excitement without transformation just leaves everybody, you've moved around, but nothing changed. For us to talk about transformation in this nation and transformation as communities and transformation of paradigms, we have to talk about more than inspiration. We have to talk about more than getting people hyped. We have to talk about more than these programs that, we just mentor people in these underprivileged communities and corporate America sort of just touches down. But we've got to really start talking about why are things the way that they are. And that's part of why, one, I'm having this conversation. Two, my office released the press announcement that we did. And three, why we have launched the Jobs and Justice Initiative. If you are an employer, you need to connect with me. I'm working with so one of the companies that I consult with is PandaLogic. It is a powerful, the best way for me to describe it is, PandaLogic is using technology, the latest in AI technology. It is powerful technology to change the way that employers employ. So we're talking about high volume hiring. We're working with employers. I don't want to give names here, but we're working with some of the nation's largest brands, some of the world's largest brands that are looking to hire in bulk and 20,000 and 10,000 at a pop. And so my job there, my role is not necessarily to sell to the big accounts, right? Because there's folks doing that, but to sell to some of the smaller accounts. I work with the franchisees. I work with partners across the country that have 20 locations, 10 locations, and they're like, Daryl, we've got the money, but we just don't know how to use it to get the talent that we need. There's so much money that gets wasted there. And so part of what we do is, and this is moving the needle, At first, I'm gonna be honest with you. At first, I was not thrilled about the role because I saw it as sales. It's like, okay, it's business to business sales. Then the pandemic happened. And I recognized what my role was. This was not sales. I was spreading the word about a more efficient way to help people get hired. In the middle of a pandemic, when the world was on shutdown, I'm proud to say that I was part of a team and am part of a team, but we were at the time helping literally millions of jobs get filled. I'll go as far as to say this. I think that I work at PandaLogic. I think that there's probably no other independent company in the world that has placed more jobs, more employers with job seekers. I just don't think there's another company in the world that's doing it like that. And I'm saying that to say, right, I'm excited about it because there is a practical opportunity for us to really begin to shift things, to change systems. So let me tell you a quick story. Part of my frustration in doing social justice work is that I always felt like we were pulling bodies out of the water. I know I've said this analogy many times, but bear with me. I always felt like we were pulling bodies out of the water. For those of you that follow my work, and if you don't, look right there, darrellbennett.com, come back swinging. You'll see videos of some of the programs that I've been a part of or led. And it was so rewarding and such powerful work to work with people closely and intimately, and to see the change and to see what mentorship and personal development would do. People who already have within them great dreams and great hopes and powerful skills, but just have to have that unlocked. This was my frustration. We were pulling bodies out of the river. Go with me, y'all. I'm going somewhere. Everybody we were pulling out. Mind you, I'm doing class by class. And sometimes we're on the phone with people at night. Sometimes you're counseling them through their personal issues. Sometimes they're dealing with trauma that they can't even express with the human language, and you're just trying to meet them there. But I feel like I'm pulling bodies out of the water. My education, my lived experience, my own trauma that I felt like I was dealing with and them dealing with it, trying to meet people where my pain was and where purpose met. But it's still pulling bodies out of the water. What do I mean? Because I felt like every person that we helped, every time we changed the narrative, every time we pulled somebody out of the river of despair, every time we helped remind somebody that you have worth, and just because you made bad choices for 10 years, it doesn't mean that has to be the rest of your life. And just because your family forsook you doesn't mean that you can't be great. Just because you were born in that environment, and we're pulling bodies out of the water. And meanwhile, we're looking down the river, and I'm watching as whole neighborhoods are being dumped in. We're pulling bodies out, but we're watching neighborhoods get pulled in. And we're pulling bodies out by personal mentorship. And we're pulling bodies out by motivation. And we're pulling bodies out by empowerment. And we're pulling bodies out by, hey, come to church with me. Or, hey, I know something that's better for you. But then I'm watching institutionally, the prison, the schools, the prison pipeline. I'm watching. We can't keep the pace up. For everybody we're pulling up, there's 100 people that are being prepared right now as we speak, for everyone being prepared for prison. Why do I know it? Sodexo, I'm going to call them out because it needs to be called out. These are some of the same companies that feed prisoners in prisons are feeding people in schools. They're using the same exact food. They're using the same utensil. And you have to ask yourself, what's happening here? That's just one example. And so what I recognized was we were not fighting something personally. This wasn't just, we had to stop focusing on one body at a time, when institutionally there were systems in place. Now whether we can spend all day pointing to where the systems came from. I don't even want to get into that, because that's when you start assigning blame and people start feeling weird. Can we agree that there are systems in this country that need to be transformed? I don't want to use radical language like defunded or evolved or destructed or anything. Let's say they need to be transformed so we can all see a better nation and a better world. And so part of what Jobs and Justice is about is starting to think about things at scale. So Terry Baker, CEO of PandaLogic, one of the first things that struck me when we began to have the conversation, because I know when we first talked, we talked about a lot of things far beyond the scope of my role just generally, just about life, right? And one thing that I keenly got from him is scale is vision. That's so when we're talking about hiring, it's not just hiring 10, it's not just hiring 20. We're helping companies hire better, hire thousands of people at a time, hire, you got some of these companies, gig companies, I can't name them, that are looking to get 100,000, 200,000. We're on the front lines of helping that happen. And I'm proud of that because what I want to see done, and this is part of the work of my office, and this might be the work of my life. I don't know. This might consume my life until I'm called home, to tell you the truth. That I want that my office lead the discussion about how we can institutionally shift the narrative about jobs and justice. It's great to talk about individuals. Now, I will always give you individual stories because in giving you individual stories, I hope to add context to larger groups. But I want to get beyond the one-to-ones. I want to get beyond us just seeing things in the context and prism of me, myself, I, and my family. We're not wrestling against flesh and blood. We're wrestling against systems and powers and structures. And I also believe that when we see them as systems and structures, we can detach persons from structures. This is not about speaking ill of police. I want to be very clear about this. This is about speaking about systems, not people. We've got to be, I want to be very specific about this. Because part of what happens when we get involved in the battle of personalities is that there is a larger picture, a richer picture that is missed. A richer picture, right, that goes beyond race. It goes beyond your neighborhood and my neighborhood. It is a richer picture that really, even I would say, goes beyond Americanism. And it is a global conflict. This is the more that I travel, the more I recognize the more dissimilar we are, the more similar we are. It's more or less the same thing. And so what I want to do is us to begin to tackle the issue of jobs and justice from an institutional level. So if you are an employer, so this is my full circle, and then I'm getting off. If you're an employer and you're looking to do hiring better, so you're on the job side, you need to connect with me. I know folks in the tech space, I'm telling you, they're working with some of the most far out, that's the only word I don't even use that word, far out, innovative technology to help people get hired. Isn't it amazing that, see, some people think of using people to build technology and to build monetary wealth. But we believe in using monetary wealth and technology to build and develop people. And that's exactly what we're doing. So if you're an employer and you're interested in how to do hiring better, let's talk practically. I want you to know how we're practically moving the needle. Now, if you are a social justice organization and you want to get involved in the work, I need you to reach out to me. Now, you might be a social justice organization. I just had a call with someone. We were just on a call for an hour, and he's involved. He's a director in one of the very powerful social justice organizations, and we're planning a partnership. How he's constantly working with people who need jobs. He's constantly working with people at scale. I'm talking 20, 30, 40, 50 at a time. And we're working with, how do we connect you? See, this is the thing. We've got the networks amongst us, but how do we connect? How does it get beyond us going into a community saying you can be great, getting people to clap their hands, put a few things on YouTube and Snapchat, and then we leave out without the tools, resources, instruction to help them get from A to B. So if you're a social justice organization and you want to get involved in the work, right? You want to get involved in the justice side. You're interested. Maybe you don't even know who you want to get connected with. I need you to reach out to us. I can get you connected. We're connected with some of the biggest power players in the social justice sphere, I will say, in America. You may never see me take a picture with these people because that's just not, you may not see me grandstanding necessarily, but you can look at my background. You can see the schools that I've been to. You can see the work. Like, you can see that part and know that it is not odd for me to say, if there's a person in this country that is a voice in social justice, I can get in touch with them. And if I can't personally get in touch with them, I can get in touch with the person that can get in touch with them. Yes, absolutely. And that is the result of having matriculated from the, I would say, the premier historically Black college in the world, the alma mater of Dr. King, from having matriculated from Harvard Law School and met all types of people, and then having nurtured these relationships, even through the dark periods in my life, even in the periods that I would rather not talk about, but I've written entire books about, even in those periods, I kept in touch with certain people. And the funny thing is, those that are closest to the problem are closest to the solution. So if you want to get involved and you're sitting at home and you're watching me, but you're like, I don't know how to get involved, right? I don't know the next step. I'm passionate, but I don't know what to do. Get connected with us. How do you connect it? Right above. I probably should do below, but above, below. DarrellBennett.com or ComebackSwinging.com. Get on there. Write us. We have a whole team of people that is standing by. Write us. Let us know. I don't know. Are you a job seeker looking to get, employment? Are you a employer that's looking to do hiring better and change the needle in jobs and justice? Or you're a social justice organization that just wants to get connected with the work, that wants to be a part of the conversation? Whatever it is, we need you to get connected. Look, this is where I'm going to end. I wrote the book, Come Back Swinging. Every time I say it, I never have the book handy for me to show you. The book's always in another part of the room. So next time I'll show you. But I wrote the book, Come Back Swinging, because I was talking about my own personal life, my own personal story, my own personal triumphs, and my own personal poor decisions. It was a personal story. I put it out for the world because I wanted people to get a sense from me how they too could pivot in life, how they too could shift. Now, I wrote this book in 2018. Actually, I wrote it throughout 2015, 16, 17, and 18. That's a whole nother story. But I released it in 2018 when I was able to, and when it was the proper time to do so. But little did I know what the significance of the book would be. I did not know that the book would become a movement. I did not know that this book would become a radio show, that it would become a platform where so many other people would tell their stories. It started with my personal story. Darrell, born in Baltimore City. Darrell, who, did A, B, C, or D. Darrell's story. And it then became the story of so many other people, not just people who had similar challenges as I did. Listen to me on this. It goes beyond that. The story of Come Back Swinging, I found, related to all types of people. People begin to write me that I never even imagined, because I wrote the book just sort of part therapy, part healing, part recovery, part wanting to inspire people. And to think that there would be people from all over the world that would reach out. Some people who would say, I've never even been to America, and I know nothing about your specific story as your challenges manifested, but I live in this part of the country, and I know what it's like to lose everything, and I know what it's like to be maligned, and I know what it's like to have to rebuild, and I know what it's like to feel like life is closing on me. I've had politicians call me. I would never, of course, put their names out. I'm talking about well-renowned politicians who have reached out to me and said, I read your book, and it changed my life. It changed the way that I see. I've had judges reach out and say, it changes the way that I see the world. Not so much because I have sympathy or empathy for you, right? But I saw in your story other people's stories. And this is when I started realizing the power. It wasn't just a personal book. I know I thought it was. It was a platform to allow us to have a discussion about an institutional challenge. Part of that challenge that I talked about in the book institutionally is, why is it that so many people face the similar challenge that I wrote in that book? Why is it? It's easy to malign people's stories specifically and say, oh, no, you did that. But when you step back, right, to get a richer picture, to have a richer discussion, and you stop asking how and what, and you start asking why, that's when things start changing. And so Come Back Swinging, just like I laid out in the book, the personal steps that I had to take and I'm still taking for recovery, for transformation, to rethink life differently. There's been certain things that have happened in my life. I'm not going to share that on this platform, that have happened in my life that I've still had to find ways to even express. There's been things that I've done in my life that I'm still trying to make peace with. But all of those things together make me the counselor, the advocate, the passionate, powerful, prolific person that I am. It adds to the richness of who I am. Now, I'm not going to be one of these silly people saying, everything I did, I'd do it again. No, but I will say that everything that I did brought me to this place. And I recognize that for us to have the discussion about institutions, we've got to get honest. And we can't do it without talking about personal experience, but we cannot do it without doing the work. And just like personally I had to do the work, as a nation, we've got to do the work. Now, I'm going to say this and end. This is not a political point. For those of us that love America, we're concerned where America's going. I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican. It really doesn't matter. You are concerned about where America is going. You're wondering, can America come back swinging? We've had a beautiful history, but we've had a complicated history. Let's be very clear. And anybody can try to look the other way, but it is no question that we have had some disturbing things happen in our history. But we don't have to be defined by it. We could take that and use that to be better. We can recognize the animus of the past and the vitriol of the past and shift and make a better change and make a better decision now. But I don't think that happens until we talk about institutions. It's enough about talking about the bodies being pulled out of the river. Oh, my cousin, that happened to him. My nephew, people always do that. You notice that? There's always a person that wants to list. I remember even as a kid, we would say things like poverty is a big issue, or you might say something like women are getting paid less across the board than men. There's always somebody in the room that says, well, no, because I know a woman that makes more than everybody. We're not talking individuals, people. We're talking institutions. And part of my role is to help not just have that discussion, but lead that discussion. And if you want to be a part of it, I want to ask you to join us. I want to ask you to partner with us. I want to ask you to donate. And this is the last thing. I know I said this was the last thing, but this is really the last thing. We have just announced the creation of the DB3 Foundation. I am so excited about this. This is our formal giving arm. This is something that I've dreamt about for a long time. I have always wanted to work with folks to create a foundation, to give. I mean, I believe the real gift of money is to give. And so part of the challenge, and I'll announce this here, part of my challenge is that for every dollar that comes into any company that I am the owner of, like the B Squared Global Group, every dollar that comes in, 20 cents of it, we will be giving away. And we're using the DB3 Foundation as the giving arm. That's our challenge for 2021. I know I'm mentioning a lot of stuff here. I was supposed to do a whole nother live to mention that, but I got so excited about it. I really did. I had to say it now, so I ruined it. But there will be more on that. But that is our giving arm, that for every dollar that comes into the B Squared Global Group, which is the group that is, we're working and we're doing a lot of amazing things with. That is our for-profit arm. That 20 cents of that is immediately going to the DB3 Foundation. And that's going to allow us to do a lot of amazing work that we really want to do. And I'm going to speak this into existence. Right now, you know of the Gates Foundation, I'm sure. You know about the Chan Zuckerberg Foundation. There will come a day you will hear of the Bennett Foundation, and we will be giving millions and billions of dollars away, and not necessarily our own, because we have a great network. We'll use other people's money to advance the cause of jobs and justice. Okay, I gotta go, y'all. Let's help America come back swinging. Ask not what your country can do for you. Let me do a whole full circle moment. That's how I started it. Ask what you can do for your country. And I'll tell you this. The one thing that I admire about John Kennedy, I'm not a bandwagon person. I know he gets quoted a lot. I wouldn't quote him unless I really did research on my own. I actually was an intern for Senator Kennedy, Senator Ted Kennedy, obviously the brother of the late president, when I was a sophomore in college. So definitely always had an affinity for the Kennedy family. But I appreciate that when he gave that call to the nation, it was a call. You have to think about it, right? We can rewind to 1960 when he said this, 1961. The country had just had a very bitter election. They literally went from having the oldest elected president to the youngest elected president. Dwight D. Eisenhower, the great general who helped us win World War II, was the president. And he was the oldest living president we ever had, this old general, almost seen as the grandfatherly figure. And his vice president, who was Richard Nixon, was running against this, freshman sort of senator who's John F. Kennedy. And it was a bitter election. And there were a lot of people after the election that on both sides that just didn't know what would be the future of this country. Where would we chart our future? Let's not forget that it was not just the Democrat-Republican schism that was happening then. It was also the advent of the civil rights movement. In fact, many people believe what gave Kennedy the edge, then Senator Kennedy the edge in 1960 election over Vice President Richard Nixon was that Robert Kennedy made a call to a judge and got Martin Luther King released from prison. And when he was released from jail on pretty much the eve of the election, or maybe like a week or so before, to all of these Black churches, pamphlets went out that said, when Dr. King went to jail, John Kennedy's brother made a call, the vice president did nothing. And many people think that shifted the entire election, at least in the eyes of Black people in that group, right, to Kennedy. And so he wins the election. And, history remembers him differently because we remember this, great looking guy and his beautiful wife and all this. But that was not how the world looked in 1960. It was not how America looked. There were many people who were calling for even the separation of this country. There were people who said that this country could no longer move forward. There were those who spoke about this being 100 years. I'm talking 1960 now, from 1860. There were those who said, remember, 100 years before, in 1860, we split as a nation, as Lincoln was inaugurated. And now 100 years later, we've got this guy, this kid who knows nothing about government. There were many people who thought that the advent of the Kennedys would be the beginning of the end of this country, because what did they know? He was a very young man. For those of you that follow politics, you will know that even before the Kennedys, there was no such thing as a primary, really. It was the party bosses that got in the back and would haggle and determine who was the nominee. But John Kennedy's father, Joseph Kennedy, had a lot of money, and he was able to pretty much lock up the whole election. I'm talking about the Democratic side, so much so that Harry Truman, who was the president, the last Democratic president, he was president before Eisenhower, he didn't even like Kennedy, even though Kennedy was in his party. So I'm saying all this to say, there was this young man with a young wife. Let's not forget, Jacqueline Kennedy was not even 30 and was first lady. I'm going to repeat that. Jacqueline Kennedy, if I'm not mistaken, she was 28. Don't quote me on that. But she was not even 30 years old yet. And she was first lady. And here he is, the president. And there were many people who wondered, and would this nation make it? And in 1961, when he stood there and he said, "That's not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country." It was not just a pithy saying to get the crowd going, as it were. He was really reckoning the nation as the nation was in an existential crisis. And what he was saying was, if we're going to survive this, you're going to have to play a part. That's really what he was saying. That this isn't just my land. This is your land too. And at some point, if you believe in the spirit of America, you better speak up too. It's fine to do it on Facebook, and it's fine to get on the phone and complain about whoever's in office and what hasn't been done and what could be done. But if you care about the future of this nation, you're going to have to get involved. You're going to have to do something. You might not have $1 million. You might not have a political office. You might not even feel like you have a voice. But I can tell you this, if you're listening to me, you have a phone or you have a computer. Guess what? That gives you currency. That gives you reach. That gives you influence. That gives you impact. And so we've got to begin to think as a whole. I'm leading by example. I'm shooting this right here from my home in New York City. Do what you can with what you have where you are. I want to empower you to get what you have, your resources, your team, your network, the people that's right around you. And if you believe in the cause of jobs and justice, if you believe in equity and fairness, if you believe that there is a better tomorrow, then you have to be a part of playing the part of change and not just talking about it. And we're going to help do that. Go to darrellbennett.com, go to comebackswinging.com. We're changing the narrative. We're moving the needle. We're changing lives, and we are going to transform the face of this country. People always, when they see me, they think I'm running for office because they think because the way I talk. I'm not running for office. I'm running for influence. I'm running for impact. I'm running for legacy. I'm running for generations. That's what I'm running for. Join me as we begin to turn the needle, and we're going to help America, and we're going to help the world come back swinging. My name's Darrell Bennett. Thanks for listening and watching. Bye-bye.